Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy Josh
and Reg,
and we're grateful to be back on with you yet again. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving long weekend. It was great on our end. We had a good old grand old time, and this is gonna be a fun all week. We got a lot to get into. First off, the big banks are making some interesting forecasts here coming up in the next 6 to 8 months, which we'll talk about. Obviously, Israel versus Hamas. That's gotten scary. But then we'll also get into, obviously, what's happened in the BC legislature over on the other side of the country, which has got real spicy this week. And as well, stuff that's happened with Matt Gaetz down south and how that might affect us up here and all that jazz. Chaos in the Congress over down there in America these days, this past week. So we have a lot to get into. And these are stories that you've probably heard, may not have heard. We're just here to catch you up on what you may have missed this past week. Reg, how you doing, big dog?
And I'm doing good. I think I'm a little bit like low energy, a little bit more so just because I've been reading the news pretty closely this past week. And honestly, it's scary times out there. And it's kind of one of those things that, you read it all and it can be heavy on your heart. It can be heavy on the mind, heavy on the soul. So it's one of those things I'm trying to kind of embrace Thanksgiving and be grateful for what we have and where we live and what we're not dealing with right now. So that's kind of where I'm heading with it. And I also did the Valley Harvest 10K yesterday. So
gotta give you some of those.
So I was pretty happy about that. So I have a knee injury, so I was able to run the 10K and didn't hurt too bad. And going downstairs sucks, but aside from that, we did it. So
let's go, big dog. You're a true old Iron Man now.
There you go. Well, I'm wearing Superman, so.
Yeah, well, that's a lot, man. Well, I still got wide awakes right here for you.
Oh, man.
So help you get through the tough times.
If I take those, I will be wide awake till like 3 a.m.
They only last 3 to 4 hours. You good?
I don't remember the half-life of caffeine, but I don't think it's 3 to 4 hours. I think it's longer than that.
Oh, true. Yeah, not for me, dude. I'm gonna crash right at midnight tonight.
No, I find like I try and take pre-workout like before I play hockey on Thursday nights, and we play at 10 o'clock at night. And I do that, and then I'm awake till like 3, 4 in the morning, and I'm like ruined for Friday. So
Unreal.
Caffeine hits me hard.
Unreal. Well, before we get into all those stories, something I want to share with y'all. I kind of alluded to this a couple weeks back, but we'll be working with a local charity here, sort of local. They have a wide worldwide global footprint, but they have a Halifax chapter here who I'm working with, Hope Worldwide Canada. And we are working to help restock the Dartmouth Community Fridge together as a part of our Trick or Eat campaign. Trick, you can donate to the link in the show notes with just a cash donation. Anything over $20 will get a receipt. And then, or a treat where you can help us fill the fridge. You can contact us through the show. I can come pick up your food that you would want to donate. We can really have anything. I got a whole list of stuff here that we will and can accept. First off, we're taking canned soup, canned vegetables, pudding cups, peanut butter, any type of pasta or spaghetti, tuna and canned sandwich meats, condiments, salt, pepper, mayo, ketchup, that type of thing, and laundry detergent. These are things that we're accepting. So just trying our best to help address food insecurity that we're currently facing here in our communities. Obviously, the Dartmouth Community Fridge is one that I'm super connected to and feel passionate about, and that's why we're kind of putting this together. So if you're in a spot to help, I'm trying not to make this the Rock Oprah situation. I know that we're all kind of going through hard times, but if you're in a spot where you can help, let us know. You can contact the link in the show notes, or email us at a show, and I can come pick up if you have any food, no problem. Or you can just donate yourself, and you can type in the Dartmouth Community Fridge, which is at 61 Dundas Street in downtown Dartmouth. So
that's awesome, man. That's really awesome, because I think that's one thing that we hear a lot about, people kind of like noticing a problem and then that's where it stops.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're actually taking action on that, that's awesome. And I hope that everybody sees that and follows the link.
Oh, yeah. And it'd be super appreciated. We're doing our best out here. And, because we as a, apparently we're super far right. We don't care about anybody, apparently. So, we'll leave it at that. But a lot of things are happening. I'm taking account of some issues that are happening. Obviously, we are getting absolutely obliterated by this marriage between government and corporations, specifically here in the West. And it's becoming more in your face. This whole own nothing, be happy, all this jazz. I'm starting to see an increase in reverse mortgage ads on TV.
Yeah.
And was watching the Sunday morning football game between the old Bills and Jaguars, and a first commercial break. I get this ad right here. I'll pull it up. Equitable Bank commercial. When your house is rich, you are too. They're targeting anyone 55 plus and older who may outright own their homes. Join thousands of Canadians 55 plus using the equity in their home to secure financial peace of mind. Get the best reverse mortgage rates. Click here for more. And they did a full commercial on this.
Garbage.
Why is this garbage, Reg? Please help us out here.
Oh, because as we talked about before on the show, you are basically being predatory against people who are older. It's just, it's just nasty.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bad way to do this. I don't know how else to say this. I feel like I ripped it apart the last time we talked about this, but I put it on the same pedestal as like payday loans, like just evil organizations just trying to completely suck the money and value out of people. So,
but they offer good interest rates, Reg, only 8%. That's great.
Yay.
It's not 18, not 28. But no, you're right. I agree with this. And this is one thing that we do agree on a lot is, this is predatory. This is not good. They're coming after a sect of the population that is slowly getting to that point in life where they are not fully aware what's happening in the world or what consequences of certain actions are or decisions are. And so they kind of prey on that, like, hey, you got some medical bills. Maybe you can free up some of the equity in your home to pay that off. We'll own part of your home, but it's okay. This is how they get back the asset. This is how they get back the thing that you spent your whole life trying to pay off. Well, this is how they get it back from you.
Yeah. See, what I see less so medical bills, like as far as like the Canadian market goes, what I've seen ads for is, we know that your family is struggling right now. Your kids want to buy a home and they can't. You can help them. You can stay in your home and we'll just, own a portion of it and we'll give you the money so that you can help realize your children's dreams. And like, as a parent, who wouldn't want to help out their kids, right? And so it's just so slimy. It's like, by the way, your kids are probably not going to own their home either. So we'll own that too. And it's slimy, right? So I look at that and I'm just like, you're preying on people who are trying to help the next generation, and they're doing it in a way that they think is good. And also sometimes it's like not even helping the next generation. Maybe it's that they're struggling to afford home heating. Like we saw recently, just the amount of Nova Scotia Power customers that are now having their power turned off because they can't afford their power bills. They've gone too many months without being able to pay. The power been shut off. I think it was like 2,000 customers or something. 2,600 customers, without power. Like, ridiculous. That's wild. And so you think about these people, like if they're on a fixed income, they're older, they've just retired, they're 55 plus, and then you have somebody like this saying, hey, we'll give you money for some of the value of your home. We're not going to take your home from you outright yet, but, we'll give you some of the money. And then that might be something they're like, oh, well, this is good. This is going to get me by. This is going to get me through the storm, or this is going to help my family or others weather the storm. It's nasty.
Absolutely. Well, it allows them to free up essentially if they can take up in cash like 55% of the equity of their home through these reverse mortgages, which say you have a home that's worth $1 million. You can take up to $550,000 in cash. You can pay it all at once, or it can be rolled out on a schedule, whatever you prefer. The problem too is you pass, and this happens a lot with these types of things. You pass, that mortgage is now bestowed on to your next of kin, And typically, they don't have the resources available to keep making those payments. So they have to sell, or it goes to power of sale. And the bank just takes it and sells it off themselves.
Yeah.
It's, as you said, predatory. And we've talked about this a few times, but to those who are just chiming, hey, listeners for the first time, this is why we are not big fans of reverse mortgages. And honestly, grandparents, your parents, whoever it is, whatever age you're at, who falls into that bracket of 55, 80 to 85 to 95, 55 and up, keep an eye on them, because the banks may be paying them a visit in times that are tough.
Mm-hmm.
We're already seeing them paying us a visit during our commercial breaks here watching football. So it's only a matter of time they stop making calls.
Yeah.
So
It's wild times.
yeah, man, not a huge fan of it.
No, and it's interesting to see just like how much there's a push to take physical assets from people. I think I sent you this earlier. And there was a study done by Boston University in 2019 where they looked at the holdings of BlackRock. I'm trying to remember the other two, Vanguard, and can't remember the other one. Like I said,
State Street.
State Street. Thank you. Anyway, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. And they were showing just how much wealth those organizations had. $22 trillion between the three of them in assets and wealth. Just absurd. And they were saying that they're predicting that, I think it was by 2030, that they'll own 40% of the S&P 500. Like, just wild. Like, how much power they have. Like, they're going to have more power than countries, than entire countries. And how do they get that power? They get that power by buying up corporations, by buying up businesses, by buying up homes, by buying up entire neighborhoods. Like, it's crazy. And so if you have a situation where you have an older person that, is at risk of losing their house, or that family's at risk of losing that asset that could then create generational wealth, like, that's what they're here for, right? So it's scary.
How can they suck you out, right? Especially during this time of elevated interest rate hikes. This is where they're just trying to sift out the dead wood. What can they collect? I've been seeing more stories kind of near the tail end of the big boom that initially happened here during the pandemic with sales. But what happens? Wait until the deadline that a house is accepting offers on their property, or people are accepting offers on their property. In the ninth hour, a big unknown entity comes in with a cash offer that's 15% over the highest bid. And the person, of course, takes the highest bid, but now it's owned by some random entity. And then you do the paperwork, and you can trace it back to the BlackRocks. You can trace it back to State Street. You can, these are these LLCs. This is in the States, but it's also happening here in Canada as well. That can be traced back to some of these bigger entities. So it's happening. So those who are selling, keep an eye on that too. If you really care about the regular person, I know it's tempting. You haven't seen that kind of cash in your lifetime, and we've seen these assets get incredibly inflated in value, and you've never seen $1.5 million in cash before, and that person's offering 1.6, 1.7. Do your best to just see what's going on here and try to not sell your soul essentially to these businesses. I know it's tempting. It's hard. I'm not above it. If I had someone flashing me that kind of cash, I'd be thinking about it. Don't get me wrong. But from what I'm seeing, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to give up to these jabronis.
See, I find I take a different approach to this, because I totally get if somebody's offering you 1.7, you listed for 1.5, and that's where the next nearest offer is, and somebody unknown corporation is offering you 1.7, it's going to be hard to turn down $200,000. And I don't think I would ever ask anybody to do that, especially when things are as hard as they are. But what I wonder is, what kind of legislation could you put in place to protect the public? Because that's what the function of government is supposed to be. It's supposed to protect people from things like this, like predatory corporations coming in and completely buying up the housing market. So I was kind of having this thought experiment with a friend of mine. I was like, what would that look like? Would that look like government saying, I'm sorry, if you're a corporation, you can't buy family homes? And then it just leaves corporate investing to the rental market, which they are obviously very much in favor of because that's the only market that they gave tax breaks to. So it's like, what does that look like if we were to actually devise like a good policy working for people to keep them out of the hands of these predatory funds and corporations? And I don't know what that exactly looks like. Certainly doesn't look like a tax, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm curious. I don't know. What do you think?
So obviously my first thought was like, I went to instantly to, I wasn't even going to the place of, yeah, if this were to happen, what should we do? I went to instantly, it's never going to happen because who's in charge. But if we're living in that type of world where miraculously we have a government official that actually cares about his constituents or her constituents, what would that look like? I could see, I think first off, get rid of blind bidding.
Mm-hmm.
I think that doesn't help.
Yep.
That's where I think it should be. You shouldn't be taking, I don't think we should be exposing people's names, but we should be exposing if they're a private entity or just a person. That would be interesting to see that, and just in terms of the bidding process. And then as well is, what you brought up there too with corporations shouldn't be allowed to own single family homes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because this is gonna be spicy, but there's people I know
here for it.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Yeah, there's people I know who maybe own 5, 6, 7, 8 properties. They're a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the State Streets of the world.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And they only keep properties in a corporation because of tax incentive.
Right.
If it wasn't for the tax incentive, they would own it personally, or protections, for example, so they can't come after you personally. That's why you keep things in a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I struggle with that type of legislation, because it starts targeting not really the problem from my perspective. My perspective is like these big conglomerates that are just who can just en masse buy up everything.
Right.
So there's some nuance there that I would want to see addressed too.
See, because like my question is like, should housing assets be considered assets, or should they be considered rights? Right? Because that's the big push right now, is like housing is a human right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a person owning 7, 8 different single family homes that they're renting out, you are still feeding into the system of you will own nothing and be happy. Right? So it's like, are you actually doing good in the world? Or just being parasitic? So
yeah, let's throw a name on that. Someone who used to be on this show, Dalton Parker. Let's get personal, shall we?
Oh man.
Let's get personal. Is he parasite from your perspective?
I don't know. I don't know what his portfolio looks like. So I don't know.
You know him as a person. You've seen him how he conducts business.
Right.
I wouldn't say he's a parasite. I say anyone who's listened to the show early days know exactly how he feels. He hates those types of landlords.
Mm-hmm.
He takes a lot of passion and responsibility in making sure he provides a home for people.
Right.
That they feel dignity and respect renting out property that he's provided them. He's very passionate about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of landlords who are like that. And I feel like there's a conflation there between you'll own nothing and be happy and housing being a human right.
Right.
They're still getting housing. They're still getting shelter. But like they don't have the right to own. That's where things get interesting.
Right, but then that gets spicy too, because then you're basically saying that you can own nothing and be happy is not okay. However, some people can own things and that's okay. So I kind of struggle because I don't know exactly how I feel about it, to be quite honest, because I think about the landlord that I had. Excellent landlord, kept the rent low, was like super good about fixing anything and didn't take that out on us. Like when we were like, hey, the heat's broken, he wasn't like, cool, the heat's broken, I'll come fix it, but now your rent's going up. did not do that to us, was the very best. And I assume Dalton's probably the same way. But at the same time, he's rolling around and like in wealth and he's okay. So that's good. Like we got one person who's wealthy and that's fine. And is a good person with it. But what happens when you get people who are not good people? Like, I think there's other people who own podcasts, who own houses that are not good people and who've had charges laid against them. So, I mean, you know, what do you do in that situation? Should wealth be built off the fact that people need homes? And it's hard one to answer because like at the same time, you can use that argument with anything. Should people be building wealth off the fact that you buy food? Like, you know, should, you know, Sheena from Made with Local, should she be able to collect money off the fact that people need to eat and she's providing service? So it's a hard one, right? But it is, like I said, it is about not the neighborhood landlords. It is about those large corporations, those large multinational conglomerates that are just buying up everything and are not, they don't have a heart. They don't have a soul. They are parasitic. So it's like, how do you separate them out? Because you know that their lawyers are going to look at any kind of legislation you put through and say, well, if you're not penalizing the person who owns 6 homes, and just because we own 6 million, like we're getting the stick. They're like, no, that's not going to fly.
Right.
It's got to be fair and equal for all. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
And I hear that. And this more so, I guess, it was interesting kind of the idea of like only this type of people can own versus these guys can't own. I think this comes down to the same argument of when you break up monopolies. You break up the Googles, you break up Facebooks. That's the same conversation, I would say, is are you going to allow one entity to own everything or a group of entities to own everything? I think that looks different than, you know, some people in the city who own quite a bit. I don't know if I would penalize them. It's a tough conversation. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of nuance to it, and it's a conversation I didn't want to have on the show tonight, but I'm here for it, you know. And because it is legitimately tough, because I don't want to take away people's right to own things, but it gets to a point where if you own everything, then you make everyone's lives miserable. And then they also have the issue too, where those people who own everything also own the government.
Yep.
And that's a problem that we're also seeing, right? So, yeah,
it's hard, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it is tough. And like this was personally, it was frustrating for me watching through COVID, just seeing all the rent evictions that were happening.
Yeah,
and because they could, and I hated that. And I remember having a conversation with someone who's in the real estate space, not Dalton. I'm telling you, I can guarantee this was not Dalton, but this person actively did a rent eviction. It was fairly public, and in this conversation, they were laughing about it.
Yeah,
at what they had done, and I had a hard time accepting I couldn't compute this conversation. I was like, that was a bad thing. Like, why is this funny to you? I'm so confused on why this is comical, you know? And so that's kind of the stuff I have, you know, I take issue with personally. Right. And so I'm a huge believer, in good landlords, people who are, you know, can be good landlords. But I also, because I don't think everyone should own. And I'm sure there's people who believe that. Dalton's one of these. He doesn't, he rents himself. He rents an apartment.
Yeah. And not everybody, that's the other thing, is not everybody wants to own.
Exactly.
Either. It's not right for everybody. It's not right for everybody's financial situation. It's not right for, and like the idea that housing assets are a key to retirement, I think is also wrong.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, when did that happen? When you start looking at, like, obviously the house prices of even 2005 or less than 20 years ago, they were normal for the most part. Like, they were normal. I've said this on the show plethora of times. My family bought a nice 3-bedroom home in the GTA for $400,000 in 2004. That's like, yeah, sure, that's like on the higher end to some people's perspectives, but like that was a modest home, good plot of land, on the subway line in Toronto for $400,000. That same home goes for $2.5 million now.
Yeah.
Like that's craziness. That's a crazy value or valuation. So I don't believe in this whole thing because like, oh man, I have a hard time with, that's where I feel like people are just getting taken right now. This is why it is a hotbed, and it's been perfect to take people on.
Yeah. Where
people who never thought they'd ever see $1 million in their lives, all of a sudden their house is valued at that much, and they've paid it off. And there's like, they'll sell it to the top bidder, and then what happens? This situation happened to Cape Breton, where a woman had her house owned outright, sold it for somewhere in the vicinity of $250,000, $300,000, had it in cash. This was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. She's now homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, people got taken.
Yeah.
Because just because you can get money doesn't mean you've been well versed in how to handle money. And we're starting to see a lot of situations transpire, especially here in the Maritimes, where a population that's been economically deprived for a long time is now starting to see some money come in. There's a lot of people who don't know how to handle it. And I'm just going to see, I have a feeling we're going to see it, and we're already seeing it. Plenty of Maritimers who are going homeless because of it. So it's tough.
Yeah, I know that recently on the media, they actually showed like RV parks where people are working full-time jobs and living out of their RV and going, we don't know what to do because, you know, the RV park is supposed to close after Thanksgiving and we don't know where to go because we, you know, can't park this RV anywhere. We need like water and septic and electric hookups. And they're going, this is my house. I can't afford to rent anywhere. There's nowhere to rent. The vacancy rate is so low, it's insane. And they're making a permanent home out of an RV. Mm-hmm. And they're going, it's not winterproof, but it's better than being on the streets. And it's interesting because when I grew up in a pretty impoverished area, and it was an area where my grandfather had a woods business, and one of the things that he would do is he would cut a certain amount of firewood for different neighbors that he knew that were struggling, and that they were either going to choose whether to heat their home or whether to eat food. And so I always thought it was like really wild. I was like, we're doing all this work and we're just giving away the wood. Like, why are we doing that? And it was an important lesson to learn. It was like, you know, well, we have more right now than what we need, and we have the ability to help our neighbors. So that's what we're going to do. And so it was a really good life lesson, I think. And at the time, I didn't understand it. Now, as an adult, I do. But he was just caring for people, right? And that was how he did it. But one of the things that would happen in that neighborhood is that you'd have people who would go, like, quote unquote, hold up a corner store, you know, no gun, anything, just go hold it up so they could spend the winter in jail because they would get 3 square meals, they would get a heated room, and they'd be found like, you know, a misdemeanor charge of, you know, whatever, because nobody would get hurt, but they just literally needed a place to live.
Yeah.
Like,
that's happened out west, where you have inmates who are, their time's up now, and they're asking if they can prolong their sentences because they don't want to go, they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Because of the housing, just lack of affordability around housing. They can't live coming out of prison. Just crazy.
And to take a lighter side to this, like, did you see Calgary's mayor talking about their housing crisis? They said Alberta's calling was their slogan that was put out. It was a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign to get people to move to Alberta. It worked a little too well because like half of Ontario went to the East Coast, and the other half went to Alberta. And now they're facing massive housing crisis in Calgary. Funny enough, not in Edmonton. Edmonton's like a ghost town.
Nice.
Nobody wanted to go there. But Calgary, though, like, they're just like, we have a massive crisis. And the premier of Alberta is like, don't worry, we're going to get family doctors, and we're going to get schools, and we're going to get homes for everybody who comes. Like, it's fine. Everything's fine. And like, the council and the people on the ground are just like, no, it's not fine. We don't have the family doctors. We don't have the homes.
Gee.
But yeah, it's like, careful what you wish for when it works a little too well.
I mean, that's what Halifax face the same thing.
I know, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the issue I have in general with our council and just Maritimers in general, I guess, is because there's just been nothing going on out here a lot. They, have had industry at various points throughout history, but there's just never been an influx like we've seen of people who want to move here. And now we don't know how to handle that growth.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing. We're we're kind of closing our eyes, blindfolded, throwing darts at a dartboard, hoping something lands. That's what we're seeing right now, especially with the way we're trying to approach building. We're trying to find doctors. We're trying to do all these things. We wanted this result, but we never thought past okay, if it happens, what do we do? And so now we're starting to see, as you said, for the first time, at least since I've lived here, and I've been here 13 years, that I'm seeing tent cities.
Yeah.
First time I've seen it personally. And from people who've lived here a lot longer than I have not seen this either. So what's the resolution? Well, obviously you need more housing.
Yeah.
Obviously there are obvious solutions to these things, but how do we get there? And
I got a real simple one for you. So where I live, there is a massive, massive chunk of crown land, just huge, acres upon acres upon acres, like larger than the size of the peninsula, just sitting right there. And it's like, why is the government not activating that land? Like,
what about, I don't know, you're a big environmentalist. I'm sure there's some environmental concerns with that.
There's going to be environmental concerns wherever you go. But the fact that we've conserved the Blue Mountain birch coves, we conserve wetlands all over the province. Usually when you destroy a wetland, you have to rebuild it somewhere else and developer pays for that. We have a ton of trees in this province. So I think we're going to be okay environmentally, right? So what we're not okay with right now is, like you said, the amount of tent cities that we have, the pollution that's created from that, the fact that we have people so sparsely positioned throughout the city that you have to take into account all the driving, the fact that putting bus routes is not tenable because you don't have the population base in between centers to actually make it worth the gas that you're spending on the bus going to those different homes. So they don't get service. I don't get service where I'm at, and I have massive subdivision and all of Tantallon and everything behind me. But there's this massive chunk of land in between us and Timberley and the rest of the downtown core that's just open land. It's start carving that up, have a lottery for it, put stipulations on who can get it, whatever. People will come out of the woodwork to actually create housing. And I said this before, because what you need to do is you need to actually get that first step. And that first step right now is accessing raw land is just impossible right now. And if you make it possible for people, if you say we're going to guarantee you this piece of property, we're going to put it at an affordable price that you've won through either selection, lottery, whatever it is that you choose. And then we're going to hold the development tax on it, so the land transfer tax on it, so that you're not paying extra on top of it. And as long as you build within 2 to 3 years or whatever the time limit is on it, then it's yours, kind of thing. But I think they did that with parts of Lower Sackville back in the day because they had a housing crisis there. And that's why part of Lower Sackville is where it's at, is because the government actually activated crown land in that area. So it's why can't we do that around this city where we have massive, massive swaths of land? I know you're going to displace some animals, but you've got a whole bunch of people here that are hurting, that are struggling. It's I'm sorry, but I'm putting them above that on my priority list.
You're putting them above the deer, man?
I am, because they keep eating my freaking garden. I was looking up ways to repel them, because it was I don't want to spray any pesticides or anything, but how do we get rid of these freaking deer?
Gee, he hates the deer.
Eating all my raspberries, eating all my strawberries.
They're taking everything. Dang. Just like State Street. Let's go.
Oh, man.
They sent them. So I thought this was an interesting situation. We talked about this earlier. All the big 5 banks are forecasting interest rate hikes to halt until June of next year. All of them are forecasting this.
Yeah.
That's different from what I've understood what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm expecting another hike here at the end of the month.
That's what I'm expecting too.
I think we're all expecting it, but these guys are forecasting that it's going to stay the same at 5 flat as an overnight rate, even after the fixed rates which went up last week.
Yeah.
What the heck is happening? What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is accurate? Do you think this is right? I don't know. I'm so confused when I've read this. I was out of it.
Yeah, I didn't understand it either, because everything I've been reading contrary to this is saying that expect rates to go up. I'm wondering if they're looking at the fact that we have now entered a recession, that we're starting to see a decline in employment, that they're like, okay, like because of these measures, like obviously the Bank of Canada isn't going to raise interest rates. And I'm wondering if that's what they're going off of, and maybe they're right. I mean, they're the banks. They know a little bit more about finance than the rest of us, but I don't know. It doesn't seem right. It seems completely contrary to everything else that we've been hearing. But like I said, it's their job to be in the know. So
yeah, but they also love to work together too. So I'm curious. I don't know. It seems really odd to me. RBC, CIBC, TD, all saying the same thing. That's going to hold at 5 until Q2 of next year.
So I guess my question is, what do they gain by the interest rates holding? Because I think the banks, if you raise the interest rates too much, what's going to happen is the banks are going to be stuck with a whole bunch of houses that they now have to move, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it might be in their best interest to hold things maybe, so that we are at a point where it's painful, but not absolute collapse yet. And so I wonder if that's what they're looking at, because you can't get blood from a stone, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, I mean, we're seeing absolute chaos in Toronto right now. The Toronto housing market is
wild,
very different from what's happening over here. Things are dropping like crazy in price. We're seeing $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 drops in value in homes over there right now. So obviously the increased interest rates are affecting those, but we're not seeing it in places so much like Halifax. We're still seeing a slight increase month over month here. So we're doing okay. Like I don't think we're going to see, like, if there is a crash, if they say they increase another like 100 basis points, I could see things getting a little too tight up here. Mm-hmm. But I think because the average mortgage here is maybe $500,000, $600,000 right now. Yeah, it's still manageable to the regular person under these new interest rates. It's different if you're living in Toronto and you have,
900, 1 million, 1.1 million,
1.5.
Yeah,
like very different in terms of that's your mortgage that you're trying to pay down in maximum 30 years under a 5% interest rate that then goes up to 6, then goes up to 7. So I think the big cities are seeing, even though Vancouver's still kind of chugging along as business as usual for the most part, Toronto's the only one that seems to be getting wrecked right now. Everyone else seems to be, there's a small tapering off in the rest of the country. I personally, if I'm using the eyeball test, I think there's one more increase in us. But that was where I really struggled when I looked at all these forecasts from all these different banks. And they all said, no, it's holding, and it's going to hold till June of next year, and then we're going to start seeing declines. Mm-hmm. And they're all forecasting around a 2.5 to 2.25 overnight rate by Q4 of 2025.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening. It's crazy. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. What's the name of that? I just don't know what the word is, but dissonance. There's just like I have
cognitive dissonance.
I'm feeling heavy cognitive dissonance, knowing what I'm seeing, but what I'm reading is drastically different, and I don't really know how to feel about it.
Yeah,
but we'll see October 27th, I guess. So that's the next meeting. So, baby. No, I don't know. I thought that was interesting information. You take that as you will. If we see a hold though, I'd be intrigued. But I think you bring up some good points that because we are officially entering a recession, unemployment's increasing, the economy is shrinking. Maybe that's enough to see a hold. We'll see, I guess. Remember we were talking about this on the show a little while back, where the budgetary office of the PMO was talking about how probably isn't a good idea to put a carbon tax in because you're going to screw over poor people.
Oh yeah, and how everybody was like, no, that's just propaganda.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this literally came from the feds themselves.
Yeah. Well, we ended up finding out that the current government paid $500,000 to the WEF to provide a document to use as fodder to sell back to the country of why a carbon tax will work.
Mm-hmm.
This government hired the World Economic Forum and purchased a report from them to bring back to Canada so they could sell the rest of the country on why a carbon tax would work.
And how much was that report, Josh?
$493,000 USD.
Cool, $500,000.
Gee, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like I've been talking to a couple of people today just about like the craziness that is our current government, and it's just it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't faze me. I mean, you know, you'll pay the WEF $500,000 for a document. You'll bring a Nazi to court. You'll do like whatever. Like I'm just like, what's the next thing on this episode of Trudeau's government? Honestly, like it was funny because like my dad and mom, I was talking to them on the phone this morning, and they're like, you know what? Trudeau just wants to be the Kim Kardashian of Canada. He just wants to be so famous and just in the headlines all the time. So he's just doing whatever because he's just wants to be a movie star. And they're like, why do you think he went to India dressed like he was going to Bollywood? I was like, fair enough. But yeah, I'm not surprised. Not even in the slightest. I'm just like waiting for the other shoe to drop on what the next scandal is going to be.
Absolutely. Well, I think that was more evidence we needed anymore, but this is another piece of evidence where they don't care about us. This was never about us. This wasn't about serving us. It's always there is a group of people that they're trying to appease that are outside these borders, and they don't care about serving the people that elected them in.
Yeah.
And this is just another proof of it.
See, my question is, I just wonder, like, what are you doing with the carbon tax money? How much has been collected, and what are you doing with it? Like, that's my question, right? If you look at like how much the pumps have gone up, you know, gas prices, like where is that going? What is that? Because when you look at actual gas taxes, a lot of them are supposed to go to like repairing the roads and actually upkeep of our entire highway system across the country. But it's like, what is this carbon tax used for? I know that we talked about our property tax bills the other day and noticed that I don't know how much yours was for the climate initiative for climate.
$70.
Yeah, mine was $70 as well. And it's like when I looked at population numbers for Halifax and I looked at like how many single family homes there are, and this was like 2018 or 2017 numbers. When I multiplied those numbers by $70 per household, they're looking at like $14 million. I'm like, what climate initiative are you doing with $14 million? Like, I'm curious. I want to know, is it going to be money well spent? Who knows?
There's no transparency on that one either.
No.
And that's where the problem, I think we text each other like almost right away when we each received our tax bills. Cause I was like, climate action plan, line item, $70. What the heck is that?
Yeah.
Where is that going to? Can we talk about this? No, because there's no one who wants to answer that question. No one who actually cares enough to answer that question. And no one who cares enough to provide us information of where money is going and the paper trail that follows it.
Yeah.
$14 million roughly is what they've collected on that just in HRM.
Yeah. Just in HRM based off of, like I said, like 2017 numbers of homes. So you know that number is higher.
Yeah.
Like just wild. And so the other thing is I just think about like when
you'll get the money back, dude. Then they tell you you'll get the money back.
Yeah, of course. Well, it just makes me think of my conversation with the CRA when I was like, why is the climate initiative payment that's supposed to come out in a couple of days here, October 15th, every Nova Scotian, and I think the rest of the country now too, everybody's going to get their Daddy Trudeau hush money. And it's like, where is that coming from? Like, is that just being siphoned off the pot that you've got there and the rest of the money is supposed to go to some unknown climate initiative? Are you paying off the pipeline that is untenable? Like what is it that you're using that money for? And why is the amount of money that we're getting back different amongst the provinces? And when the CRA agent wouldn't answer that, So we're not discussing that. There's nobody here that can answer that question. Wouldn't even give me a person to go to. It's just like, nope.
You're the agency that's collecting it.
Yeah, you're the agency collecting this tax, and you're sending out the tax money back as a rebate. Why are the rebates different? And they could not answer it. So, I don't know.
That sounds about
seems
right.
shady.
That about sums up what we've been experiencing here in the last 8 years. Yeah. What I thought was interesting, though, was obviously it was pretty theatrical, but it was almost too theatrical for it to not have a point to it. But the fact that Poilievre's Conservatives put forward a motion to axe the tax.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously all Conservatives stood up. And one brave Liberal MP stood up with them.
Love this.
And it was one brave Liberal MP who said, from Newfoundland, he said, yeah, I want to axe the tax too. And he was interviewed by CBC, and that's what he had to say.
So you voted with the Conservatives yesterday against the Liberal government, of which you are a part. Why did you do that?
I did that because I believe we have to change the way we're approaching the climate change incentive, or whatever you want to call it. I think what we're using right now at this point in time, is putting a bigger burden on people who are now struggling with an affordability crisis, if you want to call it that.
Right. This is particularly acute. You represent, CBS, the Conception Bay South, one of the biggest cities in the province, is the core of your riding. We have a lot of smaller rural areas as well.
Yes.
This is really hurting people there who use oil to heat their home, and the market signal pricing is supposed to send. There isn't an option for them there. How much is this hurting your party politically in Newfoundland and Labrador?
I think it's hurting them a fair bit. Everywhere I go, people come up to me and say, we're losing faith in the Liberal Party. They appreciate the fact that I've stood up now twice to do away with a carbon tax, or to ask for it to be delayed. I said to someone earlier today, I said I stand with Premier Fiore in trying to get not this done away with as such, but get it delayed till we get past this affordability issue. People are finding it very difficult. I've had people tell me they can't afford to buy groceries, they can't afford to heat their homes. And that's hard to hear from especially seniors who live alone and tell me that they go around their house in the spring and winter time with a blanket wrapped around them because they can't afford the home heating fuel.
God bless Newfoundland, honestly. Love them. Love Newfoundland. They get all the praise because they're the only ones that actually stand up for what they believe in. Oh, that's not true. Nova Scotia does it too. They just turn them into independence.
True.
So, but I remember when Premier Danny Williams, who was a Conservative at the time, was just like, this policy is bad for Newfoundland. Next time we vote ABC, anything but Conservative. And they did. They just demolished the Conservative Party. And the Conservative Party was livid. But it's you can't put through things that are hurting people and expect people to stand by that. I actually wonder if some of these things that, Trudeau is enacting and is pushing, because of the way that it's hurting the Liberal Party, I wonder if the old guard of the Liberal Party is looking at this and going, Justin Trudeau, he could have an easy out to step down. And I wonder if they're starting to get worried, because if they keep on this trail, they're going to demolish the Liberal Party, and you're going to see just a swath of blue go across this country. And so, yeah, I just wonder if are the people in the, inner sanctum of the Liberal Party actually having these conversations going, we may have to get rid of this guy right now before the damage of the next year is done and we lose all support entirely. Because people who have traditionally voted Liberal, like myself, like friends I had over for Thanksgiving, who have all voted Liberal in the past, are all saying, absolutely not this next election. Everybody's voting Conservative. And these are not Conservative people, but these are people who are struggling and who are finding the affordability crisis very real and saying, I can't take any more Trudeau. I can't take any more embarrassment of my country on the world stage. We need him gone. So if regular people are saying that, what are the elites in the Liberal Party then saying? So I don't think that they're going to call an election, but I wonder if they're going to get him to step down and
Try to minimize the damage.
Yeah, I'm just like under my breath thinking like, please not Chrystia Freeland.
It'd likely be here, honestly.
Yeah.
Or I mean that this is the interesting about Mark Carney. Mark Carney is coming out as a potential replacement.
Yeah.
Who is a lot more palatable and the only person who could literally maybe save the absolute abolishment they'll get in the next election.
Yeah.
Because they'll lose regardless of who they put in. I'm 100% a believer in that. But I think just a different face will minimize the damage they'll take. I think it's just going to be a different degree of losing that they're going to face. And people who are smart and who actually are going to stand up for themselves, like Ken McDonald here, they see the writing on the wall and they see if this continues on even for a year or longer, you are going to have a level of a whole generation that's going to hate liberals for a long time. And it'll take forever for them to get back into power.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are not going to forget what happened these past 8 years.
Yeah, well, the CBC actually ran a poll of Gen Y, Gen X, and millennials. Or I guess we're Gen Y. It was Gen Z, us and millennial, or us and Gen X. Man, struggling over here. Anyway, the whole lot of us, everybody under 50, basically. Mm-hmm. And what they said was like the support for the Liberal Party is at an all-time low, and that Gen Z hates the Liberal Party right now. That like they had no support from Gen Z. And it's like, well, because they're the ones that grew up, through the pandemic of everything being canceled, and they're the ones walking into like never being able to own a home or never being able to just thrive, right? So they're the ones that are suffering the most out of everybody because it just has gotten worse as the generations have gone on ever since the boomers. So yeah, the Liberal Party really needs to change face here, and they really have to do something. Otherwise, they're going to be decimated. And I think that it would be smart for them to save face right now, because that the conservative think tank are just behind the scenes going, okay, we've got people with F Trudeau stickers on their trucks. They're like, how do we run with that? How do we use Trudeau as a way to win this election? And if you take Trudeau out of the equation, I think that's going to take a lot of wind out of the sails of the Conservative Party for their smear campaigns, their marketing, everything like that. So it's the only thing that the Liberals could do. And if they're smart, they do it quickly. Yeah.
Can I go back to saying that there's an increasing amount of people who are, this whole Mark Carney thing is coming out, and he's a lot more palatable as a person in general. Look him up if you haven't done that before. You don't know who he is. That would be the way they'd minimize the damage. Is he's a very, I want to talk about basic people. He's a very basic politician. He's a hard guy to hate. But it's also, you can't really love him either. But he's a piece of toast.
I was gonna say a piece of bread.
Yeah, he's straight a piece of, which is exactly what they need.
Yeah, because there's not going to be an election, and there's no way Jagmeet is going to give up his cushy seat right now.
No.
So
yeah, we'll get in that soon. But yeah, I think that's a perfect way for us to get into some stuff here.
Oh, okay.
So we talked about, I think it was last episode, and we talked about why doesn't Jagmeet Singh do what Matt Gaetz did down in the Congress down in the States? Matt Gaetz did something crazy in the Congress in the States, and he's being labeled, smeared. What have you heard about Matt Gaetz? Have you heard anything about Matt Gaetz?
No, enlighten me.
Okay. I was genuinely curious. If you did hear, I was curious what you were hearing. He's being smeared in left media as a white supremacist, as a person who hates America, hates democracy, hates is trying to put the spikes to Ukraine, doesn't want any money going to Ukraine anymore. All these things. What this man did is, in Congress, you have the House Speaker who runs Congress, and this is a whole different arm from the presidential branch. And they get legislation passed through. And the whole goal, the way it's designed, is that these entities have to work together to get things passed at times. You have, the president who can do executive orders here and there, but for the most part, all legislation has to go through Congress. And you have the House Speaker who had a hard time getting his votes to be able to become House Speaker Matt Gaetz, and there's a swath group of them who are known as the MAGA Republicans, who kept voting against him, didn't want him in because they just see him as a guy who's a Republican, quote unquote, but just keeps helping the Democrats and keeps working with the Democrats and doesn't really do anything to oppose them in a strong way. So they made deals to be, okay, we'll vote for you if we get X, Y, and Z things. Mike McCarthy agreed to these things, and they then voted him in. He got denied his votes, I think it was upwards of 40 times. They had to do a voting process to be able to finally for him to get in. He gets in. He's been in for almost a year now, and he didn't do anything he said he was going to do. Yeah. So Matt Gaetz steps up and he says, I push a motion forward to vacate the seat.
I did hear this. I just didn't know who.
Yeah.
I didn't know the name.
Yeah. For the first time in U.S. history, the House Speaker has been vacated.
Yeah.
Crazy. And Matt Gaetz, again, was just being smeared as this terrible, terrible person. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys, you homies, all right? This was his interview outside Congress after this all happened. And you tell me if you agree or disagree with this man, if he's crazy or not.
Mr. Speaker, I think I've caught the signal too. The signal is for $33 trillion in debt, facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. And our fellow Americans may be watching, wondering, how does that happen? How does the greatest country in the world have a process so broken that it would be laughed out of the rooms in the halls of the state legislatures where many of us come from? Here's how it works. The law says we're supposed to have the very single subject spending bills that my colleague referenced in the summer. That we're supposed to have that and move it. But there's a dirty little secret in this town, and that is if you delay, if you hold the bills, if you make multiple contradictory promises, as Speaker McCarthy has done, and you back everybody up against shutdown politics, well, nobody wants to shut the government down. No one cheers for a shutdown. And of course, when people are backed up against shutdown politics, the decision calculus changes. So year after year, decade after decade, we break the law and we do the same thing. We pass a continuing resolution, then we pass another continuing resolution, and then it's either another continuing resolution or an omnibus bill or a series of minibuses that lump these disparate things together. The American people want all of us to take votes on single subject matters. They don't want to see these things all mushed together and log rolled. And it was concerning to me to hear of news of a secret deal on Ukraine funding that would have log rolled more money with Ukraine with our southern border. Now, how offensive is that to our Customs and Border Patrol, to our ICE, to the people that are suffering as a consequence of our border, that some of my colleagues are only willing to stand up and fight for our border if they could send billions to Ukraine to fund their border too? Well, I've had enough of that, and that's why I brought this motion to vacate.
So this whole issue is omnibus spending.
Yeah.
And that's how this politics have always worked, where you include, say, something for funding for LGBTQ plus people, along with funding for, say, Ukraine, more funding for Ukraine. They put it all in the same bill, and then you as a Republican say, no, I don't want any more funding to go to Ukraine. And then the Democrats come out and like, well, he hates gay people. He doesn't want to fund the LGBTQ community. That's how they kind of play politics and just villainize the other side. And he's saying, no more of this. We want to vote on single issues. And he held up Congress. He got the speaker to vacate until he got what they needed. And now he's shutting down the government, essentially, because of it overall, until they can get another speaker in. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's great, honestly. I think that we need to do that here in Canada too, because the problem is omnibus bills are bad for everyone. They aren't good. Mm-hmm. And we think of the States when we think of an omnibus bill. Canada's just as bad, maybe if not worse, for doing the same thing. Yeah. And it's exactly what you said. It's like you put up a big climate change bill and everybody's like, oh, well, we want to save the forest as well. And then somewhere in there, it's like an incentive for the insurance companies to, raise the price of insurance on cars or something stupid. Like, you know what I mean? Just something that some lobbyist has snuck in there because they went on a golf and dinner date with, you know, your favorite politician. Like, it's ridiculous. So I totally agree with that. Things should be single voted. And I think that there should be, I don't think that any vote should be secret. I think that it should be known how each person votes on each single issue, and then that be counted as an accountability measure.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. There's nothing wrong with it, but the way it's getting smeared in the media is very interesting to me. So it brings me back to north of the border. Why, Josh, why are we covering this? Why are we talking about this? Because it goes back to something we talked about a couple weeks ago. Why doesn't Jagmeet Singh do the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
This guy down here, down south, is fighting for his constituents and making sure that they only vote on single issues. Why can't Jagmeet fight for better affordable housing? Why can't Jagmeet fight for better healthcare coverage or whatever it may be? Like, why the things that are important to his party, why hasn't he fought for those things? But he wants his pension.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe when I found this out. I couldn't believe it. Unreal. Takes 6 years. 6 years of service as an MP gets you access to your government pension. He was voted in for his district, for his riding in 2019. If he gets it 2025, he gets access to his pension. So why hasn't he given a vote of non-confidence to Trudeau? There's the answer right there.
Yep.
I was in disbelief, but also not surprised. But I was just interested only because we've talked about this tremendous amount of times. I'm like, why does Jagmeet keep doing all the bidding of this government he claims to hate so much?
I know. And like, that's the part to me that just drives me up the freaking wall. Is like, he's like, Trudeau, you have failed Canada, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you are a part of this government. What the hell? Like, why do you keep saying that? Mm-hmm. Like, you are a part of this stupid coalition that's running stupid policies and making us all suffer. It's like, you are part of the problem. How dare you get up there and be like, oh, Trudeau. Like, I think I hate him more than Trudeau. Like, just because he's so phony. He's so fake. It's like, at least with Trudeau, you know, something stupid's going to come out of his mouth and he's just going to be self-absorbed. But Jagmeet just pretends all the time. Pretends he's part of the people. Changes his last name so he can look like he's more part of the people.
Explain that one.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, so Jagmeet Singh is not his, you know, actual name, because his real name, it's like, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I don't want to ruin it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, his previous last name was actually a name that's associated with upper castes. And so in India, you have the caste system where individuals are sorted by their wealth. And so he was in the good crowd. So because he wanted to appear as more of a man of the people and not, you know, just another silver spoon fed politician, he changed his last name so that he would appear as a man of the people and not a multimillionaire like he is. And so it's more pretending, it's more fake, it's more phony. It's just more of the same with him. So I'm disappointed.
Absolutely. This is the issue I have with these politicians in general. We can have a conversation about socialism. How many social programs should we have? All these, I'm okay with us having that conversation. I have my perspective, you have yours. But when you come at me with, I'm better than you because I care for people, I care about the working man, working people, and yeah, I look at your life and that you're trying to hide. Yeah. This was never about us. It was always about you. Reason why you're not doing a vote of non-confidence, when you know and you vocally said how brutal this government is, when you have the single power to make sure they don't have power anymore, if they are so bad, why hasn't there been a non-confidence vote? It's because you want your pension. Yeah.
And it was written in his his tweet that he put out there. I don't know if is X still calling them tweets? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, that's a topic we're not touching. Yeah. But basically, he wrote in there. He's like, "I've lost faith in this government." I'm like, faith or confidence? He's like, no.
I still have confidence.
Yeah. I still need that pension. So there's confidence that I have lost faith.
But I think it comes back to the things you mentioned earlier or a few weeks ago, where you feel like you would get more support if he had just come out and just done what people wanted, what his base would expect. And honestly believe if he came at this in a very honest way and triggered a non-confidence vote, I think he still would have at least won his riding.
Yeah, I think so too.
And he would still be on his way to his pension. But now he's waited too long to now it's a lose-lose situation for him. So GG.
Yeah. But no, he definitely would have, because he wouldn't have alienated his own base, because that's what's happening, is that his own base is going, why are you working with this tyrant? And then the other half of his base is going, we believe anything that's force-fed to us. So,
He's getting the Bernie Sanders treatment now.
Oh, I know.
Where obviously, we're going after the millionaires and the billionaires. And then he became a millionaire. We're going for the billionaires. It's a similar situation with Jagmeet, where he's being exposed for how wealthy he actually is, and what the lack of action he's taking on people like Trudeau and his government, and people have had enough. And see ya. So
yeah,
that'll be that. But last but not least, let's. What do you know? What are you hearing? All this Israel versus Hamas, all this stuff. This is some ugly stuff, dog.
This is one of those things that actually, like, this was what destroyed my sleep this past week, and this is why I'm so tired. It's like I'm consuming way too much of it, and just some of the images that are coming out, like from the music festival where Hamas came in and took people, videos of them, like they didn't show all of it, but basically them coming in, taking women and children, little girls, raping them, murdering the husbands, murdering the fathers, or forcing them to watch, just really horrific things. And then what I don't understand is the left being like, well, they kind of deserve it because of, the largest open air prison and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I totally agree that the way that Israel has handled the Gaza Strip, not good, not okay. Those people live in constant fear of air raids all the time. It's awful. That doesn't mean that you can take something that's horrible and match it with something that's absolutely evil and be like, yeah, it all, works out in the wash. It's like, no, that's not how it works. And to then say a terrorist group, Hamas, is justified in their actions, is just it's wild. And it's all these people that are now coming out of the woodwork and throwing protests in Toronto over this. Where were you before this? If you cared so much about Palestine, where was your voice? Where was your march? Where was that happening beforehand? Why wasn't there a bigger push? But anyway, it's disgusting. And I find it hard to watch. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, yeah, you're human. I'd imagine it'd be hard to watch. And yeah, that's kind of the problem I have in general, where people are conflating the politics with the people on the ground through all this. You can talk the policies all you want. I'm okay with that discussion. But when you have just innocent bystanders who are the ones who get hurt in all of this all the time. And not only was it Israelis who were attacked, Canadians and Americans alike were at this festival. Mm-hmm. Got attacked, got kidnapped. Some of them are probably friends of people in this country.
Yep.
And did they deserve it? What did they do?
Yeah.
And it's just, conflict is ugly. It's not fun. This stuff sucks. I hate it. But now the stuff that came out where just a few weeks ago, the Biden admin gave $6 billion to Iran.
Yeah.
Which likely aided in the monetary attack helped fund this attack on Israel. Classic government creating a problem so they can go ahead and solve it.
Yeah. The states, they're such meddlers.
Oh, yeah.
They're so bad for that. But yeah, it's just it's hard because it's exactly what you said. Did those people deserve it? No. It's do the people in the Gaza Strip deserve the atrocities that they're facing and have faced for, 50 years. No, they don't deserve that either. But it doesn't lessen the fact that this is horrific. And it just, I feel like what I get most mad about is like people who are just like, if you don't call out Israel and all this stuff right now, blah, blah, it's like Israel's suffering. Like people are, like I said, being tortured, raped, brutalized, murdered, like all ages too. Like that was the part that I thought was just like a whole extra level of just sick. Like, not that it makes it right to do it to anyone, but like kids, like, come on, man. Like that's screwed up. And then to get all these people who I consider like very left-leaning people in my media being like, well, it's okay because Israel's horrible. And it's like, no. And this is the problem that I keep having with like any conflict or any issue or anything that's like a social complex problem, is that people just like boil it down and take like, well, this evil act is justified because of this reason X. And it's just like, no, it's awful in itself. I guess it's just the way that I like my moral philosophy works. It's like, I don't think like the ends justify the means. Like these means are ugly and they're awful. And it's like, no, I don't think that makes you better.
Yeah. And you said they kind of pick that one point out and say that the ends justify the means. I mean, we can easily rewind the clock hundreds of years of this conflict. Who started what? I don't care. Like, it's just, but you're not going to be able to come in and be like, well, this person's right. Like, this thing's so complex on so many levels that like anyone in our generation who hasn't studied out geopolitics would never be able to really give any true insight on.
Yeah.
So I think this conflict's been going on a long, long time.
Oh, it's a religious conflict, right? I mean, like I keep seeing everybody writing, it's like colonial settlers, blah, 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 blah. It's like, do you realize how long Israel's been there? Do you realize how old the Jewish religion is? Like the Bible talks about fighting the Palestinians. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like this has gone on for millennia. And so the problem is that when you have two religions with both practically the same God, because of their Abrahamic religions, who have both promised them the same piece of dirt, which is desert, by the way. I'm like, of all the places on earth that are beautiful and lush, like why this desert, this dirt? But both of them very concerned over this piece of desert, and their God has promised them to it, and they're going to die fighting for it. And it's like, I don't think there's ever been a place on this earth that's ever been as blood-soaked as the dirt that is underneath Israel and Palestine. And it's horrific, and I don't see a solution to it. I think what's probably going to happen is that you're probably going to see like basically ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip. I think you're probably going to see the U.S. come in there with their destroyer and try and broker some kind of like ceasefire and basically say, and Israel's basically going to say like, either you get out now and you head to Iran or head to Egypt or head to Lebanon, and then everybody else who stays is going to be considered a combatant, and we're just going to level the place. I think that's probably what's going to happen. And because you have to realize like the president, like President Benjamin, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. That's an unfortunate last name. That Yahoo. Anyway, yeah, I think that he's got his own motivations, and I think that he's trying to put his whole like crown jewel of basically taking over all of the land that was Israel's back in the day, and that's what he's planning on. So yeah, I don't know how much of this is opportunistic for him as well. So to be totally critical of the whole thing, but at the same time, like, what do you do if you're a person in power and you're watching your citizens being dragged off and brutalized, murdered, raped? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's already started, right? We, I think it was 150, if I read today, airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. Like,
yeah.
They're just done. Like it's
over 600 killed.
Yeah, something crazy like that, right? And from what I understood and what I was reading, Netanyahu is very similar to, he's a right-leaning politician. And he's run on the whole idea that I'm going to keep Israel safe. That's been his whole thing.
Yeah.
And he's been in power a long time. And so when you start seeing people at a festival get absolutely obliterated, and your whole thing was, I'm going to keep you safe. Well, now he's going to flex his muscle.
Yeah.
And try to prove that he's the guy that can continue keeping people safe, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so that's now what we're seeing is he pretty much told Biden to screw off, and they're just going to do what they're going to do now. And here we go. And this is where I come back to politics in general, where ignore your hate for the individual. But do you think Netanyahu is going to tell Trump to screw off?
No.
It's not going to happen. Where that's the kind of the thing I kind of come back to from a from a world political lens is there was a better degree of peace on a global level when Trump was in power. But now we're just playing whack-a-mole right now with all the world conflict that's happening. We got the Ukraine situation happening over here. We have China over Taiwan over here. Now we got a crazy inflammatory event that's happened between Israel and Palestine.
Yeah,
the Hamas, I should say.
There's the Azerbaijan and Armenia situation that's happening too. Like there's conflict everywhere. It's exactly what you said.
And it's like, what do you do? Like, do you play America World Police and try to go into all these things and settle the matters? Or are we beyond that now? And do you, what was it? I think America has something like 800 bases around the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. What do you do? Like, what is your role? What are you supposed to do? And that comes back to why people are struggling with the American government, the way things are going in the West right now, where clearly it's big corporations that run the government who are instigating conflict so that they can stay in business and all these things. And people have had enough and they're done with it. And this is why you want to go back to my lefty friends of why people keep voting for Trump, because they want this stuff to end. They want to say screw you to the man, and they don't care what form it comes in. Trump is to them, Trump is the answer, that they'll be able to say screw you to the establishment and saying, you guys are done. We're done with this. We're done with you. And we don't care if there's anything that's left. We just know we want you guys to be taken out. We need someone to keep you in check. And that's Trump for them in a lot of ways. And so that's what we're seeing. Like, just people have had enough and they're just looking for somebody to look to.
And that's the conversation, honestly, that's happening here in our country, where I keep talking to friends of mine and they're like, how could you in your right mind want Poilievre as, Prime Minister of Canada? And I'm like, I am so done with what the status quo is. I don't care if he's a career politician, he's saying the right things right now. I have to hope that something's going to be different. I was like, because I can't continue on under the same regime and just expect the same results over and over again. I was like, that's Albert Einstein's definition of insanity. And I'm not insane. So I'm not going to keep watching that happen. And it's like, if you're in a position of privilege where you can afford to let that keep happening and you don't have to see the people who are lining up at the Dartmouth food fridge, and you don't have to be the person who's can't pay their mortgage or can't, pay for the heating oil, and that's not your life. Congrats for you, here's your helmet. But honestly, the rest of us, we're tired, we're done with it. And so we have to vote. Maybe I don't really like Pierre Poilievre. He said some really nasty things about Indigenous people, and my wife and daughter are Indigenous. However, I'm still going to vote for him because I need change. And that's just the long and short of it. And people just don't get that.
No, they don't get it. They keep voting by what they think there is going to happen. And I've had enough of all of it, where Trudeau are part of that same group, where you claim to care for people, but you're doing the exact opposite. Your actions are not showing what you say you claim you're for.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a politician that comes along and says he's going to do all the things that people are actually caring about. He's talking about the things that we as regular people care about. Will he do them? I don't know. I've been very cautiously optimistic of this man.
Yeah.
I tell my friends this all the time. It got to a point where Pierre was saying all the right things. And I got to the point I don't like that I'm agreeing with all the things he's saying. He's saying too many correct things. There's something to it. I don't know what it is. All I know is Buddy's in power now. It's got to go. And the same thing is happening south of the border too.
Yeah.
Where people were promised, and I get it. I totally understand. When Trump ran to when he got into office, it's been absolute chaos in the media and an assault on us through social media, through the news, through all these things. And people were promised. They really thought, we just vote for Biden, everything goes back to normal. They leave us alone. It's all good. I just want the insanity to stop. Then they voted for Biden, and the insanity ramped up. And that's why I think we're going to see a Trump 2024 victory through all this. And the same thing's going to happen up here. That's why Trudeau's going to get absolutely trounced. People have had enough, and they just want control of their life back.
Yeah. And you also see that anytime there's an economic crisis, where do people vote? They vote for the party that stands for reining in spending, balancing the books that don't balance themselves. You know what I mean? Like that's where people are going to vote, because when it all comes down to it, if you can't afford to buy food, pay your electricity, your electricity gets shut off, you know, and you realize that there's a government in power that is partially responsible for this, are you going to vote for them? Hell no.
Yeah.
Like, it's insanity.
Totally.
So,
and we'll see what continues on. But that was a tough show. Lots to get into type of show. But we're glad we're here with you. So, anything you want to end off on?
Nah, I think, like I said, it's just too much right now. So, I'll end off on this. I actually had a really good conversation with mom and dad this morning. And one of the things my mom had brought up was she said that she was telling my niece, she was like, oh yeah, you come from a long line of people who are really good at math. Like, the girls in this family are all really good at math. And then my niece was just like, oh, well, I'm good at math too then. And she immediately was like, started studying her math and it was just kind of like a confirmation, because I'd also listened to a podcast where they were talking to a therapist, and she was saying one of the things that I talk about most often with my clients is the fact that your beliefs become you. And so one of the things that I thought about that, like through that podcast, through my mom's example with my niece, and just kind of like how I'm living my life right now, is just like my thoughts become me. And I am very plugged into a lot of the stuff that's happening, but I think I'm going to unplug a bit for the next little while, like just this over this past week, or over this coming week, I should say, just because I need some thankful thoughts here. You know, we just had Thanksgiving, and I need to kind of like bring it back to a little bit of gratitude, and bring it back to like, what am I doing in my own life? What am I doing in my community? And try to draw it back to that, like your project that you're working on with the Dartmouth fridge. So I think that's kind of like what we all need to take away from this too. It's just kind of like, this is all heavy stuff. Like, this is wild. And so we need to like really think about like what we're putting into our brains, and questioning the things that don't seem right. And then also just kind of really kind of taking that idea of we become our thoughts, and try and think some good ones for the week.
Absolutely. And couldn't agree more. That's something I even see with people in my circle in general, where they're starting to realize more and more of everything that's kind of happening, and they're starting to go a little crazy, and they're coming to me, and they're like, you see this happen? You see that happen? And I'm like, I do a whole show about this. Just go listen to my show. Yeah. I don't want to do this in person. I have to put enough mental energy into this to produce a 1 hour show every week. In this case, an hour and a half this week. And I don't really want to do it in person. However, you run to me in person in public, sure, we'll have a conversation. I'll be happy to have you, as long as it stays under 10 minutes. But when it's just constant, and you just see it on social media, see the assault going on, you just want to you just want to think happy thoughts. And thus why I partnered and done this project, the Dartmouth Community Fridge, and just trying to get this thing restocked for people, because again, things are tough. People are in tough times. Whatever I can do to help, I want to do those things. And so remember to check the link below if you want to donate it monetarily, or check out the list of things that we have if you want to drop them off yourself, or you can email the show here and I'll come pick them up for you. So whatever it is you're doing, whether you be stocking the Dartmouth Community Fridge,
or using the link to donate,
or spreading positive thoughts to make sure that you're taking care of your community, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, we love you. We're out. Peace.